Earlier this week, we had the chance to catch up with Livestock Analyst Kyle Bumsted, talk about the latest trends he's observing in both the live and feeder cattle markets. Here's our conversation from Wednesday afternoon. Well, for those who have not been watching the day-to-day movement of live and feeder cattle, let's start there, Kyle. Bring us up to speed over the last 2 months. How has the trade been developing?
Straight up. If you want the quick and dirty version, it's been straight up. I mean, and here this most recently here, I mean, the last couple of months, yeah, we've seen some small minor setbacks. We've seen some limit down days and things like that, but ultimately none of the major uptrend has been violated. So we're still in a clear uptrend as far as the charts go. Here up into the recording here today, we'd seen 8 straight sessions higher, and it's tough to say if we can hold it 9 or 10, but it's been a heck of a move here recently. Once we broke into new contract highs and new all-time highs, they kept buying. And it looked to be mostly non-commercial buying as we saw commercials selling the spreads in both feeders and live cattle. So we did see some deliveries start to be tendered here in the South, which is kind of a head scratcher because everybody keeps telling me that we're out of cattle in the South. And we did see midweek some heifers tendered for delivery there in Amarillo, 10 loads. So going to be interesting to see how the trade develops with those here as we kind of finish on out that October live cattle contract.
Kyle, this year for the cattle complex, are we following the seasonal trends or have we bucked to that here in 2025? As you mentioned, we continue to grind higher.
As far as seasonal trends, I mean, I think you could throw all the seasonals out the window, and it's like you said, it's been bucking higher. So there has been a recent seasonal here to be for the December live cattle to have some support underneath them and push higher here for a few weeks. And when the day that seasonal started, we've been nothing but higher since then, except for midweek there, we saw a little bit of a setback here. And it's going to be interesting to see how we finish off the week here. But yeah, so far the seasonal trend higher has been working. So we are kind of keeping our eyes here on box beef. As we move through the end of October here, we're going to start to see that holiday procurement take place here as far as your Christmas parties and things like that. It's crazy to think about Christmas parties and stuff when we're not even to Halloween yet, but that's when most of the meat starts getting procured is right around this time frame for those later holiday receptions and whatnot.
Kyle, as we take a look at the news that's impacted the cattle complex over the last year, of course, New World screwworm, the biggest thing, shut down the Mexico border, and we continue to see new cases pop up south of the border. It depends how far, 100 plus miles is the most recent one. New World screwworm, I want to talk about that, but in particular, with how we've seen the flow of cattle shift, of them not coming into Texas, has that changed processors and where they're getting their cattle from, particularly in some of those southern states?
I think so, yeah. We've seen a lot of cattle here from the north get shipped south here to fill some of those slots down there as far as processing goes. So it's not uncommon now to see, trucks coming up from the south and hauling them down. We've seen cattle as far as the North Dakota-South Dakota border get hauled all the way down to Amarillo to get processed. So it has definitely affected the flow down there. But I do want to point out, I was looking at some closeouts here recently from some of those southern yards, and this would have been kind of in that southwestern Kansas, Oklahoma Panhandle, Texas Panhandle area. Some of those cattle were weighing over 1,700 pounds, and those guys really aren't used to feeding cattle that big, and there were some docks on the carcasses. And I want to caution folks, as they're talking about the number of cattle that we seem to be lacking out there, we are making up for some of that in tonnage. So there were some dock carcasses in some of those loads. So I think the packer could start to get a little bit, with their margin being, as I say, it is in the red. I think the packer could get a little bit persnickety on that and maybe start to maybe enforce some discount schedules here in the north too, if that were to continue.
Interesting point. Appreciate you bringing that up. Back on New World screwworm front, I was just reading an article. It was pointing out that as we approach these colder months, the adult screwworms cannot survive in the weather temperature when it's below 20 degrees. Do you think as we continue to get closer to the freezing point, some areas I guess have hit that, but is the cattle complex going to stop paying as close of attention to that?
I think they will for a short term. I mean, I don't like really functioning either when it's under 20 degrees outside, but I have to anyway. So, I think that once we get to that point, we might see the border reopen a little bit because cold weather is going to be in our favor. Just depends on how cold and how long and what else the USDA kind of has intact or as far as working or as far as control measures as well. So cold weather is probably going to be about the best thing for us here. So, but if it does stay in the south, in the Mexico, if they do keep the border closed, we still got to deal with it next spring when it thaws out anyway. So you're going to have that to deal with once it warms up in March.
All right, Kyle, in closing, bring up the grain complex. When it comes to the price of feed, particularly corn here, still pretty cheap when you consider everything going in the feedlot.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you're looking at, I looked at some cost of gains here between 85 and 90 cents. Some are saying it's a little over $1. That might be getting a little bit high, but it depends on the area. So, if there's an opportunity, I think for folks to, maybe get some hand to mouth coverage through the end of the year, then maybe look at some longer term coverage here to the upside, because it looks to me like there is there are some things happening with those deferred corn spreads out there as far as the March to May and May to July, which could maybe longer term say maybe we're tightening up our corn just a little bit. So folks might want to get a little bit of upside protection just in case. There's some cheap ways to do that. So I would definitely look into doing some of that here as we get our needs covered here throughout the first of the year.